MSNBC foments unrest. And I have a theory about why the mainstream media, not to mention the president of the United States, wants to foment unrest currently, right before the election. And I just want to say for the record that fomenting unrest is always a very bad idea. It's wrong in every way possible, yet we see the mainstream media doing this. And the question that I have for you podcast listeners is why? Why is the left-wing mainstream media trying to foment unrest? What do they gain? What does anyone gain from that? Well, don't believe me, just listen in a minute, setting this up. So we have, of course, the MSNBC host, Tiffany Cross, and she just came out, I think it was yesterday or the day before, with some ideas of her own about, fomenting unrest. And we have that clip, and here it is.
I'm Tiffany Cross. And these days, it feels like we are not just at the brink of a civil war, but that one has already begun.
And if they try to prosecute President Trump for mishandling classified information after Hillary Clinton set up a server in her basement, they literally will be riots in the street. I worry about our country.
They've turned into the American Gestapo. MAGA is a direct threat to the, wait for it, the American state. You said this quiet part out loud. We are a threat to the American state.
So Trump supporters are already speaking the language of violence. They're threatening the FBI, the DOJ, the state itself, and this is all as they defend their dear leader. Now, it's more than just threats, though. Their rhetoric has already led to actual violence, and there is likely more to come. And I don't need to remind you how the MAGA mob sacked the Capitol on January 6th in an effort to overturn the 2020 election. Now, some of these people are now candidates for office, looking to run our elections and, quite frankly, our government. And for those insurrectionists being prosecuted, Discount Don is, quote, financially supporting some of them and offering to pardon the lot if he's reelected in 2024. More than 40% of Americans think a civil war is likely in the next decade. That's a big number. Is this where history will say it began?
Yes. Is this where history will say it began? Namely, civil war at MSNBC. Is it history? Will history say that MSNBC caused the next one to happen, the next civil war to happen? This is sick. This is really sick, MSNBC. This is really sick, mainstream media, to foment civil unrest. And so I ask you the question, podcast listeners, why is MSNBC trying to foment unrest? And the answer is right there in front of us, because as Tiffany says on MSNBC, you cannot forget those insurrectionists on January 6th. And we have a president of the United States that called half of the country semi-fascists. Then we have Hillary Clinton that is also hitting the wires as well, talking the same talking points. And coincidentally, or not, we have the FBI who is raiding people's homes who are pro-life, raiding people's homes who were in the former president's administration, and generally speaking, only raiding people's homes, at least it certainly seems, who have a political point of view that is right of center. And I want to make this very clear, podcast listeners, and to all listeners in different government agencies. I believe that the rank and file FBI agents are trustworthy and wonderful. I think that something is very wrong at the top of the FBI. These are the individuals who are coordinating with the Justice Department and shaking down, of course, people who are right of center because they dare to speak out. So you have MSNBC saying that there might be a civil war and that the Republicans are the ones who are talking about it and or trying to cause it. You have the FBI who are going after people who are right of center. You have Hillary Clinton saying the same thing. You have many Democrats parroting the same thing. And then You have the President of the United States of America saying that half the country are semi-fascists. All of this is coordinated. Of course it's coordinated. It's coordinated because the Democrats are so badly behind in the polls that their hope is that the way they win your vote is not because of their failed policies. And if you notice, they can't even talk about their failed policies because they're not talking about it at all. They're hoping to win your vote because they're going to try to convince you the other side is scary. The other side doesn't believe in democracy. The other side might start a civil war. The other side might engage in an insurrection. Folks, look, you have a mainstream media that is literally sick. And I know that MSNBC, of course, they have an audience. But really, do you really have to go there? Do you really have to demonize half the country and talk about people who are families, who are pro-life, who love children, who believe in procreation? Do you have to, are they fomenting civil war? I mean, it's just ridiculous. So why is MSNBC so crazily saying this kind of stuff? Namely, that so many Americans think that there might be a civil war. Why does MSNBC do this? Well, ladies and gentlemen, and podcast listeners, listen to this, okay? We have articles that have been coming out over the past week or so. Here's one. GOP voters are virtually impossible to poll after Biden's mega Republican speech, the top pollster said. Now, we talked about this previously, but very briefly. Polls may significantly undercount, and this is in the Epic Times. You're sure as heck not going to read this in the Baltimore Sun or the Los Angeles Times, but you might read it in the Wall Street Journal and the Epic Times. Polls may significantly undercount Republican voters and supporters of former President Donald Trump following President Joe Biden's speech that attacked mega Republicans earlier this month, according to a top independent pollster. So Trafalgar Group, they are trying to figure out what is going to happen in this election, like all pollsters do, so they know where to target money and who to help. You know, who's ahead? Okay, let's help them get over the finish line. Who's close to the other person who might be slightly ahead? Well, then let's help them. But if someone's really far behind, then forget it. We're going to throw in the towel and reallocate the money in races that we can actually win. Well, that's the whole purpose of polling. Polling helps people know where to target money in political races during elections. So Trafalgar Group is like, well, wait a minute. We're polling and we simply cannot figure out what is going on out there because people aren't talking to us. People aren't answering our questions about what they're thinking. And the reason is pretty simple. Because you have the MSNBC host saying that if you dare to have an alternative opinion about any issue of the day, any issues, abortion, the Ukraine war, big tech, the economy, gasoline versus electric vehicles, climate change, if you dare to have any kind of alternative opinion to the conventional left-wing wisdom, then you are somehow an enemy of the state. You are somehow an insurrectionist. You are a danger. And we're going to get the FBI after you. Ladies and gentlemen, this is literally why people aren't talking to the media. This is literally why the average Joe out there is not talking to the pollsters. They're terrified of letting people know what they think. And so in the Daily Caller, here's another one. Mega Republicans seek to destroy the United States of America, senior Biden advisor claims. So, right? So if you are a Republican and you may support Governor DeSantis, or you may support Governor Abbott, or you may support Donald Trump. You may be a Republican who doesn't support Donald Trump, but supports Abbott or supports DeSantis. But you are nonetheless a Republican. you may still feel safer by not telling anyone anything about who you support. And this is the issue, because you have articles like this and individuals like this who are saying that MAGA Republicans are seeking to destroy the United States of America. So what the Democrats are trying to do is to say anyone who's a Republican is a MAGA Republican. Remember what a MAGA is. Make America great again. My wife always corrects me. She says, Mark, it's actually MAGA. I like MAGA. I don't know. It just sounds, it's easier to say than MAGA. But make America great again. Imagine who would be threatened by that. You're right. I want to make our country great again. How dare you? You're an insurrectionist. So we have this article. It says, a senior advisor to President Joe Biden's MAGA, I said it right that time, Republicans pose a danger to our democracy and seek to destroy the United States of America. This individual said this during this past Sunday morning's appearance on, of course, MSNBC. Quote, it's important that as we look at the MAGA Republican agenda and those who seek to lead our country, like Kevin McCarthy, who will lead our country if Republicans take the House in November, it's important that we pay attention to what the agenda will be. Former Democrat Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms of Atlanta, now a senior advisor to President Joe Biden, told host Jonathan Capehart, quote, this MAGA Republican agenda is a very dangerous agenda. So here is Keisha Bottoms, the former mayor of Atlanta, right, who ran a once great city into the ground, where you have crime that's out of control. How she still can be a Democrat, I have no idea, but fine. That's her prerogative. But she's now saying that MAGA Republicans are dangerous, including Kevin McCarthy. Now, folks, I think most people never really thought of Kevin McCarthy as a MAGA Republican. Not that I'm aware of. Yes, he's the likely Speaker of the House if the Republicans take over the United States House of Representatives. But most Republicans I know never looked at Kevin McCarthy as being like a super MAGA type. Nonetheless, you see what they're doing. If you're a Republican, there's a nexus between you and anything and everything that has to do with the insurrection, which is, of course, absolutely absurd, ladies and gentlemen, because no one really wants to talk in detail about what caused many of those people to even show up on January 6th. They showed up on January 6th because all the change in election laws that happened because of COVID at the very last minute. And we've spoken about this at length before, but the Democrats are still talking this talk about, and so is the media, about how the Republicans are a danger to society, and therefore you can't trust them. You cannot trust them.